Greetings from the county line. If you've been watching this month, you know we've, again, strayed away from the county line. I'm out looking for some major dudes, and I found another one. With me today is Petty Officer Second Class Joshua Darling of the United States Navy. Thanks for sitting down with us today and telling us something about the Navy and what it is you do. The reason I wanted to do these, and I explained them, I think, on the phone earlier, is because clearly there's a disconnect between American citizens and the military anymore. People don't really know what it is you do or how you do it.
Right.
So tell me something about you. You're from Oklahoma.
So I was born in Minnesota, raised in Lawton, Oklahoma. I was pretty much born and raised, essentially born and raised there, if you want to think of it like that. So I don't really have an accent like the North, and I also don't have a Southern accent, and we're also not part of the Midwest. So that kind of puts me in a pickle, right?
Hey, you can squeeze in anywhere. It's one of those homogenous accents.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is very true. So the reason I joined the Navy is, it might have been a selfish reason, honestly, because my dad obviously was Army for 20, and that kind of like ingrained it a little bit, like maybe there's some patriotism there. And then my brother, he joined the Navy as well. Obviously he's out now, but back then in 2010, 2011, I was just like, well, I graduated 2010. Don't really know what I'm going to do. I took my summer and pretty much enlisted in the Navy. I was like, if my brother can go military, I can too. I wasn't really particular on a branch. It was just that my brother happened to go Navy. So if my brother had gone Army, I mean, there might have been that leeway for me going Army. But
How long have you been in the Navy?
I've been in for 14 years.
What kind of experiences have you had as part of the Navy?
That is a big question, because I say big because the Navy, we're doing everything, right? So I'm Navy, but I've never been on a ship. Kind of like a weird area right now. I'm considered a CB. So my job in the Navy is builder. I am construction.
The Fighting CB is the construction
CBs.
battalion.
Yes.
Yeah, they're famous.
They are, and I am, in a sense, yeah.
Were you like a heavy equipment operator? Or?
No, vertical construction. So like anything that you see out in town, like all the vertical construction that's going on, especially in like neighborhoods, that is kind of essentially what we do in the Navy. We, aside from the other branches, we are the only branch that goes from start to finish. So that's foundation, laying out all the batter boards, getting our lines just right, and then building it up, and then all the way to the interior paint, and then baseboards.
You guys can build anything.
Yes. So,
and you're obviously pretty proud of that.
I am, because it's kind of weird that I've been in the Navy for as long as I have, and I've not been on a ship. I don't think you consider...
Have you ever seen a ship?
Of course. Okay. So the Midway doesn't really count. It is a floating museum. And then there was a destroyer, not a destroyer. It was a destroyer in White Beach, Okinawa, about 30, 45 minutes from Futenma, which was where I was stationed. I was doing public works on a Marine base in Okinawa, and my chief at the time was just like, you know what, I think you guys really need to see what it's like to kind of tour a ship. And so we got that set up, and we got to visit a destroyer. So that was interesting because, like, first time ever on a ship. Never been a part of one, though. I'm considered a battalion, so we go to battalions and public work departments. And then there's, what is it called? I'm trying to think of the name. Oh, crane crew. It'll come back to me, I swear.
You talking about the Naval Ammunition Dump or Depot, whatever it is,
The
down
depot
in southern
down
Indiana?
Southern Indiana? I'm trying to think of the name of that one, too. It'll come back to me, I swear.
Yeah, well.
Crane, yeah.
How
Crane.
did you get involved with recruiting?
So every so often you have to go up for orders. I was coming up on my window to choose for orders, and it just so happened that I picked one, and it was at the bottom of my list. And I was just like, oh, I get extra pay. I get to work with other people. Sounds like MWR type stuff, military warfare, welfare, recreation. And I was just like, well, that sounds kind of interesting. And then I get selected for it, and then I start reading into it. I'm like, oh, I'm actually recruiting. So it was kind of just like a toss-up, because I was just like, well, I could turn down the orders and be needs of the Navy at this point, or I could just take them and see where it leads me.
When you say coming up for orders, you were like looking at being reassigned somewhere?
Yes.
So you just thought, you saw this opportunity to become a recruiter, and you jumped on it.
Yep. That's
And
pretty much how it went.
Is there a school for that?
There is. It's called NORU. Navy Orientation. Oh my God. 1 second. You got this.
Nobody'd know what it is anyway. They trained you to do this job, though.
Navy Recruiting Command Unit.
Okay.
Navy Recruiting Command Unit.
And then you wound up in Kokomo.
And I wound up in Kokomo. It's usually when you go recruiting, you are stationed pretty close to where you were born and raised. And when it comes on orders for your assignment on our website, Navy Assignments, it pretty much is like where it's located. So we have INTAG. Detroit is our headquarters. They're the region of Michigan, a little bit of Ohio, and then Indiana. And when I seen Kokomo, I was like, sounds like the Beach Boys. And then my other
Where did
choice,
you get shocked?
So I had two choices when my Master Chief called me. Master Chief is E8. Basically, he was just like, I'm going to give you two choices, Grand Rapids or Kokomo. And I was just like, all right, Master Chief, I'll give it a day to think about it. And as soon as I hung up that phone, I was just like, I should have taken Grand Rapids. Should have taken Grand Rapids.
You know what? We're glad you're here, and we're honored to have you. Let's talk about what you do here. Okay. Is there a lot of interest in joining the Navy?
So when people think about the military in Kokomo and the surrounding areas, they really don't think about the Navy, because where is the closest body of water? Obviously you got the Great Lakes.
800 miles away at least.
And then you got the Atlantic. That's our biggest body of water nearby, right? So you don't really think about it. You're not going to see a submarine in a cornfield. It's just not going to happen. And so...
Yeah, that presents some obstacles.
We have Grissom Base right up north. It was pretty big back in the day, and that's where the Air Force was. And so you don't really get representation of the Navy around Kokomo.
Right.
And then you also have like family members who were prior Marines, prior Army, prior Air Force. And then you get the occasional prior Navy. And they're like, man, if I had talked my daughter or son into this, like, it would have been a great opportunity for them. Now they're working at Dollar General or Chrysler. That's our biggest seller around here is Stellantis and Chrysler. So factory work is pretty big around these parts. And then everybody who hears about the Navy, when they look for construction jobs in the military, they come across Seabees quite often. I hear somebody come in the office and they're like, so I'm thinking about the Navy, however, I only want this job. It's a engineering aide for the Seabees. And I can't, obviously, all the branches can't say you're going to get that, right? You have to qualify for it. You have to qualify it for its through physical, right? You have to be checked like a normal doctor visit. Your eyesight has to be good. Can't have pretty bad hearing. So you kind of just work head to toe. Have you broken any bones? Are you on the ADD, ADHD medicine that we talked about earlier? And it just kind of depends what they can actually be qualified for.
I understand that only 30% of draft age men in our country today would be eligible to join the Navy. Is that about right?
Well, with the ADD, with all the medication, like, because I would say about 75% of people I talk to in this office have some form of past ADD or ADHD medications. And so, yeah, I would say
so
they're still qualified.
They weren't paying attention in school, and their parents started them on some sort of prescription medication that disqualifies them.
That was back in the day, though. So now that is no longer the case.
Okay. What about obesity?
But it is a case-by-case basis, right? So they can't have conjunction of different medical conditions. But I can't say whether or not they get in. That's all up to...
It really narrows the number of people who are even eligible to be part of the United States Navy, though, right?
Right. When we get people in here, we give them enlisted screening test to show them kind of what they would get on the actual ASVAB, because a lot of students haven't taken the ASVAB. A lot of the high schools around around Kokomo, I don't think they're being tested for the ASVAB. Unfortunately.
Yeah, that was routine.
It used to be one of those ways where you could actually graduate early if the military service was one of those things that you wanted to do, and then you would get your parental consent, right, and then move on to your future.
Just makes your job a little tougher.
A little bit.
But, you know, the United States Navy has a very proud heritage. There's probably more tradition in the United States Navy than there is in any other branch of the armed forces, including your brother Marines down the hall.
Sailor of the Sanskrit sailor over there on the wall. That's something that you get when you do something special. So he got Imperium. So each of these are kind of different. Right?
Oh, I've heard of this. Where you cross the equator at sea.
Yes. And I can only hear stories about it because I've not gone on a ship, right?
Hold that up and show our people the camera, would you? And explain to them what this is, because it is pretty. This is absolutely unique to the Navy.
It is. So it's kind of just like a presentation that you witnessed the equator crossing. So this is one of those things that you would receive, and then put your name down, say, hey, I want to get one of these, and then you receive it.
But I don't know how it works in the modern Navy where hazing's been considered taboo.
There is no hazing. So
when the thing was, when somebody went through
that was the past.
Yeah, it was.
So we've been going through a growing phase where we're phasing out any form of hazing.
No more tailhook conventions.
No.
Shame.
No.
Okay. Well, anyway, if somebody walks in your office and we talked earlier with some people about the ASVAB test,
right,
which would qualify them for a position. What happens next?
So with the ASVAB, if they qualify, then we'll see what we can do. When they get on the East and we see that they scored over a 31, which is the average score you need coming out of high school, you have to have a 31. The Navy's a little bit different, mind you. The standards have gone a different route than the normal traditional military, right? Because the Marines, they still need to meet that BMI standard of the height weight, right? You can't be overweight, And you got to be physically fit to be the Marines, right? They're jumping walls and
You got to
crawling.
be physically fit to be in the Navy, right?
You,
I mean, you got a chin-up bar in your office, for God's sakes.
So obviously, when you go to boot camp, if you're over that height weight standard, we will put you in a nutrition class so that you will learn the proper ways to eat food. Most people nowadays, you go outside your house, go a mile down the road, and what do you see normally?
Fast food.
Fast food, McDonald's, Burger King, Arby's. Like
poison.
You look out here, you see White Castle. So most people, like, they choose that quick meal, and then over time it builds. So going through boot camp, yes, you are over height weight standards, but you're under the threshold. And then so when you're under that threshold, we can work with you. We know that you can get back to standards, back to under the height weight standard. It is a little picky, it is.
Well, sure. But so someone who is morbidly obese probably wouldn't qualify, but if they're borderline, you'll give them a shot.
We'll give them a shot. Obviously, we work with you until you go down to MEPS, and hopefully you've been taking enlisting seriously.
What is MEPS?
Military Entrance Processing Station. So that's Navy, Army, Marines, Air Force. Space Force is a thing too now.
Yeah, I forget about them too. And the Coast Guard.
And the Coast Guard. There's only 2 Coast Guard in Indiana and Michigan.
Okay.
So they cover a whole region, but I don't really ever talk to them.
Okay. So they qualify for these jobs, they go through MAPS, and if they're borderline, I'm sure they're going to know before they get... You still call it boot camp, don't you?
We do. We only have one.
Okay.
North Chicago, Great Lakes. It's about 3.5 hours.
Been there forever,
from
hasn't
here.
it?
It's been a minute. Being in for 14 years, yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. How long is boot camp?
It's only 10 weeks. So back in the day, it was a little shorter, right? 8 weeks. But the new 10 weeks is getting basic life skills. So that's like if you just graduate boot camp and you get out of A school, your A school is your initial training, and then you go into the fleet. You're going to see lots for cars out in town that are 16% APR for a fresh sailor in the United States Navy. And so they a lot of the times pry on young sailors because young sailors don't really know how to manage money.
Sure.
And buying a brand new or a used car, that APR could be very pricey. So that's one of the courses that they kind of teach is don't buy high APR. Nutrition classes, continuing that. They teach you how to budget. They talk about the thrift savings plan. So basically a 401k for the Navy. Military branches. It's our version of the 401k.
These are life skills. Things people used to get from their families. Now you're teaching them.
Yeah.
Do they learn any warfighting skills in boot camp?
So for the Navy boot camp, we are basically learning how to live and work next to new people, right? Because you're leaving home, everybody you've ever known is at home, and then you're just going off and meeting brand new people.
Oh yeah, big transition.
You're learning firefighting skills, you're learning how to tie knots, you're learning how to communicate to the helm, you're learning how to talk to one another if there's an emergency on the ship, you're learning basic first aid, and you do learn small arms fire, so handgun, M4.
What about all the yelling and screaming that we see in, Full Metal Jacket and...
So nothing like that.
Not?
No. So everything like you see on YouTube and just like TikTok shorts, take it with a grain of salt, right? The reason I say that is because obviously when you first get there, they don't know who you are. You're just no better way to say this, you are a body at the beginning of the day. But when you go into your command, your division, you actually get the people around you that you're going to be living with and working with alongside for that 10 weeks, it'll be on like a last name basis by the end of it.
Why would a young person want to join the Navy?
Travel. So just like me, when I joined, it was for that kind of selfish reason of like getting away from home, wanting to explore, but not having a real kind of plan.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of gave me that kind of focus, that drive to do something new. And so I would say the Navy travels the most out of all the branches. We are on the water, not 24/7, granted.
But join the Navy and see the world.
Join the
That
Navy,
used to
see the
be
world.
The slogan.
I mean, if you look on the back posters on the wall, obviously those aren't, those are old school, but still holds true. So me not being on a ship kind of really diverted that whole join the Navy, see the world kind of thing as being on a ship, right? Because when you're on a ship, you're going port to port to port. My partner in crime, he was in Everett, Washington for 5 years, and he went through the Pacific up to South Korea. He visited Australia, and then the East China Sea, and then wrapped back around to Washington. So that he got to experience being in the Navy. But he wasn't on the ship 24/7. Out of that whole time he was in Everett, Washington, attached to a ship, he's only gone out for about a year and a half. So, because you have to train up until a point, and then you go on deployments. You go on that deployment, you take care of your task, whether it's de-escalating some country out in the middle of the ocean, and then coming back. It just depends on the mission.
Jobs are so technical anymore. I mean, and I'm sure in your business, with nuclear submarines and nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, and there's got to be some pretty high-tech jobs available to people.
There is. So anytime somebody scores over a 70, we look at the line scores. Everything is based on the line score of the aptitude battery test, right? So when you go down to MEPS and you're physically qualified to join, you're mentally there, you're like, I'm going to do this, and then your line scores don't match up to the job you want. You do have to kind of make that choice, like, do I want to make the Navy a career, or am I just doing it for the job? So it kind of goes back to that, like, because you can enlist, and then it may not be a job that you want at first, but eventually you will be able to switch your jobs later on. So you're not stuck in that job for your whole career.
Yeah, we talked to the Army guys about wanting to be a tank commander if you start out as a plumber, and Navy it'll let you out of one deal for the next if they haven't the slots.
If they have the slots, and if your line scores match up, you can.
What about college?
College. So I'm sure the other branches have already talked about it. The tuition
but I think
assistance
that's a big deal.
and the GI Bill.
I'd like to hear it from you too.
So the Navy has what's called tuition assistance. It holds. So when you enlist, you're going to boot camp, then you go to area school. Obviously, you can't take college during those, right? Because you're learning how to do your job in the Navy now. So, because you have to go Navy first and then focus on what you really want to focus on. But it's still there. So about a year and a half, so 180 days after getting to your first ship, you can start taking college courses. All you have to do is, there's a separate pot of money for everybody that wants to take college, and then you just put your request in, say, hey, I want my major to be business administration. That's a big one. I don't know if you've heard that around here.
No.
It's been a pretty big one that I've heard a lot of the students say they want to do. over 2 years being here, yeah, it's kind of a pretty big one up there.
Because they're setting themselves up for a career later on in business.
Because they want to, but
yeah.
I mean,
and the Navy will help them do that.
I would like to throw out entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Being an entrepreneur is a pretty big deal. I mean, you have to set up a new job, new career. It's a lot of time to start up a new job. But the Navy would give you that jump start to get there.
Fantastic.
Because you have your VA business loan. What that does is it gives you a zero interest loan, so that you can start up your business. I think there's a cap of like $100,000, and it's a small loan, right? But it's zero interest to you. And then there's the VA home loan. I mean, when I was growing up, like, I didn't think I'd ever own my own house, and now I own one in Gulfport, Mississippi.
Congratulations. that is a big deal anymore. We're out of time, but is there anything you'd like to close with?
Definitely take your time and think about what you actually want to do with your military career. It can give you that jump start for college. It can give you that jump start for a business. It can lead you down a path that you didn't even know you wanted to do. Like I said, when I was 5 years in and I had hit my higher tenure for E4 and I re-enlisted, I got zero bonus, zero enlistment, and I'm here 14 years later. And I love the job. So if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Is that the saying?
You make me proud to be an American, certainly. I want to thank you for your service.
I appreciate
Ladies
the
and
support.
gentlemen, Petty Officer Second Class Joshua Darling, one of America's finest. Thanks for being with us today.
And thank you
and
for the time.
God bless everybody. We'll see you next week.